Everyone, if you are joining live, thank you so much for joining. I know everyone is busy this time of year. We were just talking about World Cup going on now. I don't even know if there's a game right now, but I know it's that time of year where we all are in full-on summer mode, enjoying the season, hopefully getting some vacation in. But meanwhile, there's like a million things happening in the world of search for e-commerce that we are going to dive deep into today. And so I am so excited to have my friend here, Pedro Diaz, to talk about what that means and how to think about it a little differently, especially if you are a retailer deep into holiday planning right now. This is for you. So yeah, Pedro, I'd love for you to give a quick introduction.
Hey, well, thanks, Michelle, for having me. I'm delighted to be here. Introduction. Let's see. I've been in search for about 20 years now. I've did an unusual path, unlike many SEOs. I started in a search engine, and then I went out of it, started my own business, and then I've been in several roles since then. I've kind of sold my business back to my business partners back in Brazil, and I came to Europe, and I'm more now integrated into product so I'm more towards the technical part of SEO rather than the content part, and that's where I kind of like to play with. I've been head of SEO for multiple businesses here in the UK. I'm based in the UK, although I'm from Portugal. And so I've been head of SEO for news publishers, for video, scientific research, video businesses, and I've consulted with mammoths in the space like eBay and Mercado Libre in South America, and all the biggest players in the market in Brazil, like Amazon kind of size websites. So I have accumulated quite some experience from all this, from my time in search, and now it seems that we are tilting towards a different scenario. So here I am to discuss what this entails, that everything that is new seems old at some point again, but there are a lot of nuances to it. So once again, thanks.
Yeah, and if no one, if people here haven't read your newsletter, because you just had a couple things this week that you sent out that were very intriguing to me. So I guess a little background, how we met and why I even reached out is the inference, right?
So yeah,
yeah.
I keep the inference. So I didn't blog. So I used to blog a long time ago, write on my own blog. And then around, I think, 2018, 2019, I kind of stopped a little bit because social and work gets in the way. And then when I came back to the UK, I did a few podcasting on my own as well, but that didn't kind of keep up. Well, I didn't keep up with it. Then I started to publish content on my consulting website, which is, I wanted to keep it like, factual, technically correct, credible. So I keep like knowledge base there of whatever is in technical SEO. But I have felt the need of going back to having something where I can be more me. Like I'm sarcastic. I confront people when they claim things that I think make no sense sometimes, in a good way. Sometimes, text doesn't carry tone. Sometimes it's kind of a bit difficult to kind of be perceived as that you are being nice when you are being like a bit blunt sometimes or short. So I started the inference in a way like where I can extrapolate a little bit more outside of the technically correct and what's supposed to be like a technical document. The inference is more where I can be me, where I can toggle sarcasm back in, where I can go on a rampant, where I can, when I feel like, where I can be like more opinionated, so to speak. So that's what it's supposed to feel. And where I give like takes on the industry, where I make predictions, where I make like, all of what I've already touched here, that kind of, raises an eyebrow. So that's the inference. It's where I want to be a bit more on the informal side.
I mean, I loved it. I mean, that's why I reached out. I think that honest opinion is so necessary, because everything else I see, there was another post, someone used the word sloptimized, and I'm like, that's how I feel, is everything is sloptimized, but your content was very real and honest. But like you said, one of the other things I appreciated, because I've historically been on more of the marketing side or the content side, and I'm kind of just now digging into the world of SEO and whatever, AEO, GEO, whatever you call it, and you have such a good technical knowledge. And we were talking about, where does, SEO even fit? It's so historically it was marketing, and then there's this whole idea of a product lens, like a very technical side of SEO that we don't really talk about that much. So I really appreciated that lens. So if we want to kick things off, let's talk about the world that e-commerce brands are living in right now. So we know the search is becoming more conversational. There's this idea of 0 click, so not clicking to your website, and that this idea of primary like social platforms becoming the engine for discovery, things like TikTok or Reddit, whatever it might be. So what do you think the long-term strategy is for traditional e-commerce sites? Like, are we headed towards a future where, 0 click's the real thing or not?
Great question. I mean, that's something that I keep debating every day as the things kind of taking shape. The honest answer is like, nobody knows. We can only guess, right? What I see happening, that's another thing. What I see happening is, as we go through the process of getting better systems in terms of AI, and if things kind of work better and better, there's a motivation for people to use them more. And what this makes is like, whereas before we used search engines and websites to discover on our discovering process, because we have several stages that we are in when we want something from the web, right? And there's our need for information, there is our need for transaction, there's our need to go somewhere, location. There are people usually slice this in kind of informational intent, transactional intent, all the things that people are used to. And when these things came along, these AI systems came along, what they were suddenly really good at was to create a mashup of whatever their knowledge of something is and deliver it to you. And this would kind of take the burden that you had before on when you were on the need for information about something. What you would do, you do a bunch of queries, you would open a bunch of websites, you'd read a bunch of pages, and then you'd form your opinion. And at the end, you'll do a transaction on somewhere that you'd find more credible. What you are now seeing is that you have something in place that will do all this work for you, and your role has been pushed towards the end where you'll do the transaction, right? So everything has been compressed now, and this has been split between memory knowledge of these systems that can give you an answer without searching the web, and where these systems will need to do some work on your behalf. Whereas like doing searches on a search engine or doing a task on your behalf because they have the necessary privileges on a machine to use your browser or to use your credit cards to do something and buy something for you. So, depends how now risk averse you are. You might be willing to, be more on the forefront and, wanting these things to do everything for you. And this will likely be reflected on whomever is on the other end of selling services, on what they see these things kind of panning and how this movement's going. But it's a whole mixed cat of bags right now, bag of cats right now. Whereas like you have attribution is getting all over the place in terms of that is really hard to attribute something. Whereas before you could say, oh, this person came through organic and then, they converted, they went here and there. But now you don't know sometimes if an AI cites you because it can cite you from memory and not visit your website. It can visit your website and not cite you.
Yes.
So that's another thing. So there are a myriad of things here that kind of make the whole thing complex. So what I would say is that with a certain level of certainty is that the discoverability process or period that users would do and content for information is getting a bit commoditized.
Yes.
And so we will see a lot of sometimes action or impressions. You're getting a lot of impressions, but you're not getting any clicks. And this probably indicates that you are being shown somewhere, but the part that it matters is you should be aware, or you should be, the part that you should be aware is that, and it should look and it should matter to you, is like, how are my conversions still performing? Am I still getting conversions? What is their threshold? That are we, did we lose in comparison to before? Did we not lose? Because the discussions going around is that these are more, that the conversions now will become more qualified, so to speak, because the research process has been done by a machine. The person is more prone to conversion when they already made the decision on the information that is handed to them. So when you see a visit from a human or from someone, they are more likely to convert rather than before. On one side, people say that this erases the motivation for content creation. We will see how that pans out. But this is where we are right now. So what this means for e-commerce is, like, I'd say, if you have an e-commerce, if you have a unique product, if you have like a really robust, differentiator, like Amazon does their Prime, so kind of they do deliver for free. They do a lot of things for their customers. You can do almost returns hassle-free. So a lot of people will prefer Amazon and will continue to use Amazon despite of AI. But if you're having an e-commerce that relies, on something that everybody else has, and you do not have like a substantial value add or competitive advantage that differentiates you from your competitors, if your only difference is price, which I don't think is enough differentiators in most of the cases, you're going to be in a more difficult situation, I would say. And unfortunately, like the Industrial Revolution wiped out a lot of, things and middlemen, and we are going to see the same with happening with AI. So this is my doomsday scenario, and this is my take. Everyone will have one, and this is how I see things kind of panning out in the future. So,
and I wouldn't even say that's like so much doomsday, because what you're saying really makes sense. It's like, and I've heard even CEOs talking about it, just work under the assumption that clicks aren't going to happen. Like you said, it's the conversion. And the other interesting thing you point out is this idea of attribution is totally changing, which is tough, because I feel like attribution's always been a really hard thing to do. Now you add in this layer of AI, and you see all this stuff out there of, oh, I can tell you about your AI visibility, and I can tell you how you're getting found. And that isn't really truly accurate, right? I mean, if you, like you said, you can see if an agent visits your site or what pages they're visiting, but then do they recommend you? Like, what is that attribution, right? There's so much technical things happening. I think people are panicking and building tons and tons of content. Like you said, they're building 200 blog posts in hopes that the AI is going to read them and like them. And it's not working. In fact, it's backfiring, right? I think it was some gaming company got kind of blacklisted, and there were a couple others. I think maybe ClickUp got hurt by that. Anyway, we had talked about previously this idea of like just building content to try and get recommended by the AIs, but we're seeing that backfire. So maybe pivoting a little bit, but what would you say in that circumstance is your recommendation for what retailers actually need to focus on if it's not going out and just, building a whole bunch of content?
Unfortunately, I think as we go forward, and if you think a little bit, these systems will only become smarter, not dumber, right?
Yes.
So if you are looking for like a quick way to kind of game the system,
Yeah.
I have bad news for you. So what I recommend, and if you want to play the long game rather than playing the short game, is you need to basically just create a better brand, have a better, so be better for your customers, sell a better product, provide a better service, um, engage, be genuine. Because
Yeah.
as I see we going forward, and everybody is kind of putting their bets on content automation and all of these things, piped into ChatGPT that will produce 200,000 pages for you in overnight. And what this will create is going forward, people will become more and more skeptical on the content that they're gonna find on the web. I do that already. Whenever I go into any page, the first thing that comes into my mind is like, has this been written by a person or been kind of spit out by ChatGPT or something like that? And I look for signs that tell me that give me confidence of that has been that is, at least if it's been, the thing is that it's not that ChatGPT has done it. It's that effort has been put into it, because I can have ChatGPT or Claude or anything spit out content for me. But then do I have the trouble of going through it and ironing out things that are factually incorrect, things where it kind of hallucinated, things where I think it didn't get my tone of voice right, and I want to make sure that it is. So what we are seeing is that people are using these tools to replace humans instead of using them to augment your powers in terms of the value that you can deliver. So I would say, if you want to play the long game, do the latter rather than the former. So do employ these systems in terms of how you can do what you couldn't do before. You needed more development time because you wanted to improve your product pages. Do that now, because probably an engineer can do 10 times the work than it used to do before. Use these things to your advantage in bringing to life things that you had on paper because you didn't have the sprint time, or the engineer task force needed to do it. So this is where I would be using these things too, instead of just trying to put more content, more things that nobody will read in the end.
Yeah.
I would use this to make just a better product in the end. Build the thing that you'd like to have that nobody has built. That's how I think about it. And if you can use AI to help you with some content, or that's great, but do not let it go on its own and kind of spit out things that will take a toll on the credibility of your business. Because once people start to suspect that you don't put effort into your business, I've always heard that one negative opinion takes 5 positive opinions to counter. So for every negative sentiment that you create, you need to create 5 good ones to erase the bad one. So I would avoid running loose with these systems in order to create things on a quantitative scale rather than a qualitative scale. So that's where I would go. There's no other way to put it.
I mean, I think exactly to your point, I think we used to go into relationships with a business with that trust kind of by default. Now it's like the opposite. I automatically don't trust what people are saying on a website is necessarily true, or is it written by AI and someone just shipped it, or there is this extra level of, I don't know, scrutiny. But then it's almost like for me, when I'm shopping, I'll go back to ChatGPT and ask for specifics, which is interesting, right? And it is interesting the way that shopping behaviors that happen and what I think retailers need to think about to build that trust. Because I think, like you said, build a better product, have like real differentiators that is a service or something like that, and then how you communicate that, I think is really important. But as AI search kind of inherently prioritizes efficiency, it doesn't necessarily pull things like visual merchandising or storytelling to present products. It's looking at like the raw data points, the price, the specs, the reviews. So how do executives like protect their brand equity and justify potentially premium pricing when the discovery layer kind of commoditizes that?
Well, your pricing and your brand need to reside on the quality of your product, not what you say about it. Like,
Right.
because right now, I mean, before we used like to say to e-commerces, oh, you need to create content about your products because that will help the users on their journey to discover, the qualities that your product has that might not necessarily be in the product description or represented by the product images. Right now, I think that the value of that is getting a bit erased, to be honest. It's not going to be completely erased because I don't see this kind of, it's not something that's going to die, right? It's something that's just going to, think about before we had social, right? Before we had social, people use search engines for everything. They use search engines to discover content on blogs, and blogs was where people would socialize, right? Like I have my blog, I write my opinions, you come to my blog to put some comments, and then you'd have like links to your friends' blogs, and you go to your friends' blogs to leave comments, and there you go. This is what was our social before Facebook, before Twitter, before whatever and then social networks came along and people drifted away from having blogs. Blogs became like this place that mostly like people that used to blog have, that sites would have to justify having some sort of content, but they lost the social part of it for what they were designed for. And you'd see that where people would kind of, they don't leave a comment on your blog, they go and post it a link on social, and the comments go on social, on Facebook, on Instagram, on whatever. So people kind of engage with each other there because it's where everyone is. And this didn't kill search. This took the social aspect of search away into its own box.
Yes.
And then we were left with everything else, right? And now we were left with the discover part that was still done through search. So there are several intents to search, right? As we all know. And now what AIs came to do was to take away a little bit of that discoverability part, because they are really good at amassing large volumes of data and making sense of patterns that humans, because we are humans, we cannot deal with large amounts of data. We can only deal with certain levels of amounts of data. That's why we open like 100 tabs and we leave them open for a week or two, because we cannot process everything that we have just opened. But now AIs will do this work for you because they are really good at it. They are good at synthesizing things. So they will take like the 10 websites that you used to search before and open one on each tab, and now they will kind of hand it over on a nice self-contained summary, which is really convenient for you, but this takes away all the clicks that you used to give to go to these other websites. So in a way, again, it's not that search is going to die, because also these systems do search to get to their contents from. And ultimately, if you want to validate something, you want also to search yourself. These systems do not have the full capacity of a corpus of data like Google does, that has like trillions and trillions of pages. And so search will not die overnight. It will get a bit more cheap. It will lose a little bit of more of that bulk process that we used to use it for. Now we will live somewhere else. Like, I used to do all my shopping searches on Google, and I found that more often I do them on Amazon, as
Yeah.
well. Like most of us also do that. Probably we use Amazon for a bunch of stuff that we used to use Google before. This doesn't mean that when you want something that is a bit more, I don't know, high quality or premium, you don't go to Google to search, and you'll find several brands that do not sell on Amazon and sell in there. So I don't know. There are some things that you go still for Google and you don't use Amazon or e-commerces. But then again, it's just a matter of things falling in their own places and where people find them more convenient. And there's no way to fight against this. I mean, the only things you can do, it's now because these things are going to reflect your brand on your behalf, is make sure that whatever these things consume, either it be the content that you have on your pages or the videos that you do or whatever you post on social media, or mostly what people talk about you, is to make sure that you are not painted in a negative scenario and people have a good impression of you. And I would say that more and more this will go towards something that you won't control so much in a direct way, but it will be indirect. So you'll just have to do a better work at managing your brand, managing your services, because ultimately, you can put out as many listicles of you as you want, putting yourself first, comparing yourself to other brands. But I think this will come to a point where, AI systems will understand what is being kind of, crafted in an artificial way and what is genuine, and they will be able just to distinguish. So that's why I said in the beginning, I would put my efforts on, playing the long game rather than the short one. And instead of trying to find gimmicks for whatever works now, I would try to find, point my efforts towards, a long-term scenario. I mean, obviously you have to do your own due diligence work on making sure that your website is crawlable, understandable. Don't make a website that is hard to understand by these systems. But in terms of what you used to do before, like publishing content at scale and something like, I think that's going to be a self-defeating prophecy in the end, because it's better that you just put some real effort in 10 pieces of content that are gonna be genuine and show value that your competitors cannot show, rather than engaging on some kind of software service that spits out 200,000 pages overnight, and then it might give you a thrill over the first 2 weeks because you'll see everything going up, and until um, you wake up the next morning and you see that everything going down again, because these systems they will have a delay in catching up, but they will eventually catch up. And that's what I've seen. And not me, only me, many other people in this industry that I kind of talk on a daily basis. We are seeing the same. People that engage in these scaled content processes and approaches see their traffic going up really nicely because they say, oh, we created a really good prompt that spits out all these posts overnight, and we are really good. Look at our charts. And it works for the first 2 weeks. And then after the first 2 weeks, things start to be a bit grim. So I wouldn't bet on shortcuts if that's if that's what you're thinking of doing. I would steer away from that. And yeah.
It's interesting, right? I get it, because I think you open LinkedIn and it's like there's FOMO and fear, and I need an exit strategy right now, and I'm falling behind my. It's like there's a lot going on, and I think a couple of things you mentioned that I like is one, this idea of how things are moving. Search isn't going away, but it is becoming more conversational. It might be moving towards a ChatGPT, even though the traffic and certainly conversions there aren't that high, but there is some movement. Or the way that Google searching is different. Just like you said, social moved from, at some point from Facebook to Instagram or whatever. So it's not going away. It's just, where is it happening, and how do brands optimize for where those searches are happening, I think is really interesting. And then your other point about content, it's very hit or miss. Yeah, if you're just putting in a prompt on ChatGPT, or I see a lot, again, stuff on LinkedIn of, do AEO and SEO so much cheaper, and you're just going to throw it in a prompt and find what you're missing on your page, and you can update it. I mean, there's good ways, I think, of going about this and bad ways of doing it. If you are taking something like your product catalog and customer reviews and like true, real content, as with anything with AI, if you're grounding it in like true reality, there are benefits to doing something in that way. But if you're asking ChatGPT to run an audit without the context, without your catalog, things like that, of course you're not going to get a good result. And I think that's really interesting. Thinking about like, what do you do with what your differentiators are? In many cases, a brand's differentiator is their product catalog. They might have the most amazing catalog in the world, but they're not getting found because they don't have the right content. Maybe something I want to press you in on a little bit is this idea of like you said, something, let's say like a comparison page, right? So brand A versus brand B.
Mm-hmm.
Is it, and maybe this is just a hot take and I'm thinking out loud here, is it worth having that page because it might be something AI does source and you can prove that AI potentially looked at that page to get information, whether it made the recommendation or not, you don't know, but it might have used that as a resource to determine a recommendation? Or is that like not even worth pursuing, if that makes sense? Like,
I would be careful because right now, I mean, I would say that has some value to the extent that if you are being honest and if you are having these pages to show where you fall short of your competitors and you fall and you have an advantage, that I would say that's a good way to approach it. What I'm seeing, it's not that what people are doing.
Yeah.
What people are doing is that they are creating these pages of comparing themselves to their competitors, and they are consistently putting themselves first place, like, look, we are always best. Yeah. And what I'm seeing, and yesterday, I think I saw someone on X or Twitter putting out an example where an AI took the content of one website that does this. So they compare themselves to, 10 other competitors. The AI recommended all the competitors that are in there except the site where this content is placed, because they put themselves first. So, yes. So I anticipate that this can be an indicator that these things or adjustments are being done to make these things aware of this kind of dishonest manipulation, so to speak, because in some aspect, when you are not being honest, you are being manipulative towards, your own interests. So if you talk about your competitors in a way to say, look how I'm better than them in all these aspects, and you leave out really the honest takes where you are not that good, I would say that you might, erase your trust and kind of, in the end, I think in the end, it all becomes like a game of trustworthiness and how you can be trusted and how AIs then accumulate. Then they are trained over what they consistently see on your website and what is your approach. And if their consensus of training is whenever they go to your website, they always have this, I need to suspect whatever this website writes about, because last I learned about this website is that they always put themselves first. Then you are losing at the start. So be careful. Again, be careful on doing any kind of gimmicks, because it will just be short-lived.
So we actually have, Joe mentioned this, which is, I feel like, so true. And I hear it all the time because we're hearing brands, I have to just focus on my AEO, GEO strategy, whatever it is. So from Joe, he was asking, what do you say if someone says, I just need GEO, I don't need SEO?
I mean, I think we are being overly dramatic in making this difference. I understand where this comes from. I mean, there's a new there's a new surface, right? There's a new surface for users to consume information. So people, right, have the urge to say, oh, whatever we are doing for this new surface needs a different kind of approach or a different name. That might be correct to a certain extent. And the extent, I think I've posted about this on LinkedIn before, the extent where I agree where this is different is the measurement layer, and where we no longer have a deterministic system that ranks you from 1 to 10. Now you have a probability of being cited, a probability of being mentioned, and you need to understand what these systems learn about your brand and what are your odds in these systems. But there are a lot of complexities to it. So in this aspect is where I concede to have a different approach in terms of looking at what these systems know about you. Where I do not concede and where I don't think is the same, and I think it's too early to kind of say that SEO is like an old discipline and no longer applies, is that SEO is very much based on everything these systems need to consume information. So they need crawlers to consume information. They need to retrieve information from the web. They need to crawl the web. And all this process, and even so now even more complex, now instead of having one bot that kind of does the crawling for everything, you have 2 or 3 different bots. You have one bot for training, you have one bot for doing the RAG, which is the retrieval augmented generation, and then you have another bot to do like tasks for you on your behalf that goes on the web and searches for things. So I would say that it's even more pertinent to have someone with SEO knowledge and skilled in dealing with retrieval systems and how web pages render and what you should be serving, to look over your websites and your corpus of data and whatever you want to build for the web. I think this is where SEO still very much applies. And so I don't think we should dismiss it and we should kill it, because the argument that I've seen made against this is that SEO has painted in a bad light, so we not need to kind of justify budgets and have the opportunity to paint a new era of things to regain some budgets from marketing. But I think we are throwing the baby with the bathwater with this process, and I think if whatever is next is GEO, or I think it's a terrible name, to be honest, because there is we are going to be battling with geography and geology. We have been for years in this space. And it's just like a bad name. Sorry, it is.
It is.
Whatever it is called, I think it should compound with SEO and be a layer on it. And the layer that I see, as I said, that I award some credibility is on the measurement layer, and probably as well on the training layer. So because we now have websites that are mostly made for people, and people are still visiting websites. But I would say that in, I don't know, maybe 5-10 years, we are already seeing a shift where more bots will consume content on the web than humans. We will likely see some people and some businesses worrying about what they serve for these bots where they serve for people, because they need to be different experiences. Like we had different experiences for mobile versus desktop, like for apps versus a website. You would have different experiences and ways of serving data and experiencing your product. So now when you have a bot visiting your website, you might be awarded to show them content in a more efficient format that these bots consume information and things that you want to bot to learn about you in a more direct way, rather than having it wasting time through things that are not useful for them. And we saw this with Cloudflare launching Markdown for bots.
Right.
Certain systems like having Google is doing this with their the technical documentation pages where they have if you add .md in front of Google documentation pages, that it just retrieves the Markdown page, the version of it, which you can argue it's more token efficient, and these systems wanting to be token efficient because more tokens for them is more money that it's being used or wasted or whatever you want to call it. I would argue that it might make sense until we are proven otherwise, that having this might be beneficial. You might want to present a version of your website for training purposes and having another version for human consumption for purposes. So this is where I award. That might be some differences. The rest, when it sits on content and chunking or all of this, I think is a bit of shenanigans, to be honest. And I don't buy into these methodologies, and I think that they are based on anything that really moves the needle from what I've observed. I mean, all I've seen is like people that created this AI system saying how they do not control them, how they are unpredictable, how they hallucinate. And then on your other website, you have a bunch of GEO bros saying, no, this is how we control them. This is how we make them say whatever, So, do your own work, do your own due diligence. But I accept that there might be a new discoverability layer. There might be things that you might do differently, different approaches. I don't think it's awarded to kill whatever SEO did, because it just doesn't work that way.
Well, I think to your point, it's like, imagine you're going to kill Meta just because TikTok came along, right?
Yeah.
It's a similar concept. You wouldn't just stop advertising on Meta if it's working for you just because a new social platform, popular platform comes along. And doesn't necessarily mean it's a different strategy. And I think one of the things you're mentioning as well is this idea, and I'm still wrapping my head around this, of like having a bot version versus like a human version, because the way that they're searching is different. But I am curious long term if the page can have the attributes that humans and agents want, like on the page. So let's, for example, Google launched their conversational attributes, right? Things like, what was it, like theme and occasion and style, things that they need attributes for to surface the right results in those conversational searches. So if I'm searching for a dress for a summer wedding in August in Colorado, which I have coming up, and I don't have a dress. So if I'm searching something long like that, Google's agents, whatever, especially if they're autonomously shopping, which I'm not ready for that, but in that world, they need to know those attributes, right? I know it's for Colorado mountain wedding, August is going to be hot, whatever. They need to have those conversational attributes. So, and maybe I'm getting really technical here, but the thought of having those attributes both in like your Google feed, but also on your page, on the same page a human's looking at, is that beneficial, or does that make it more complicated, I guess?
Well, to have those attributes on Google, you would have to have them on your page if you wish to be associated with them, right?
Yeah.
So, and this goes back to what I think it's awarded within whatever you want to call it now, if it's GEO or whatever, is like understanding your odds of being associated with a trait that you think your brand is. For example, when I ask ChatGPT, what brands of cars does it associate with reliability, it always tells me Toyota. When I ask ChatGPT what brands of cars it associates with security, it always tells me Volvo. And and I will ask ChatGPT one word for what characterizes a startup. It says like garage, because startups used to be created in garages. So the thing is, you need to understand what your brand is associated with, or you want it to be associated with, and then work towards the gaps that you notice that are missing, that it does not associate you. Understand if this stems from a lack of training data or a lack of presence in retrieval data, because one thing we are dealing with is models have two ways of responding. So they have a way of responding from memory, and they have a method of responding when they are not confident and they have to do some extra search. I think that as we progress, memory is cheaper because they just spit out whatever. They know that doing RAG is expensive because it requires more tokens, right? Again, models want to save tokens. Models want to be efficient, or either in the input and on the output, right? So if you think about it, the more they learn about you, the more they try to compress things into memory and answering from memory. You want models to have a propensity to associate you with something, and you need to work towards that, making that association. So you need to understand, ask the model, oh, without searching the web, how do you describe my brand in one word? And then how do you associate me with, what brands you associate with the traits of your brand? And you want to understand how many times the model cites you and how many times it cites your competitors, and then understand what can you do to close the gaps, right? And it's just like that's where I word this, this work needs to be done. But then on the operational side, and when you go to speak with engineers about what needs to be done, that's a whole different scenario. That's where I would say someone experienced with SEO, technical SEO, needs to come into play to make sure that everything is done alongside your needs, and it works well. So think about this. You need to understand that there is memory, there is RAG, and models will tend to be lazy by default and efficient by default. So I think the path forward is that models more and more will avoid wasting tokens and wanting to answer from memory on what they learned, except for things that might be, delicate. Like I would say, whatever is your money in your life, politics, health, money, finance, these things might be a bit, still making these systems kind of search and kind of ground themselves. But I think the progress more and more will be towards the training corpus and have being in memory, because whatever they do, they will try to answer from memory.
I mean, that's almost a scary thought, because what that would indicate is that if you don't get ahead of it now, if you aren't training the LLMs correctly now, and then you're not in that memory.
Yes, but worse, what is more scary is, this is my assumption as well.
Yeah, I love it.
And it makes, for me, it makes a lot of sense, is if a model doesn't associate you with a trait, or doesn't know well about you, it is very unlikely to search for you in the first place, because if it doesn't know you, if it doesn't have you associated with something,
right,
you will be blind even when it does a RAG, even when it does a search. So it will be more biased always toward what it already knows. It's how we are biased with our own assumptions. We are biased with our own ways of thinking before we are confronted with something else. So now you need to confront models to make them learn about you, to make sure that when they have the propensity to search, that they are willing to include you and not to exclude you, right?
I mean, so I guess this is from Doran Chapeau. It's not showing up here, but this sounds similar to what you're saying. Is like being remembered and chosen is another from being surfaced and cited. And it's an interesting way to think about it, because it's true. But I guess what do retailers need to do now to get in that memory bank?
Yeah.
Oh,
and that's the thing. And the thing is, not everyone is talking as well. We are all creating content at scale for this. All these prompt tracking sellers and solution sellers, what they sell you is create content at scale. And I don't know if everyone has read about Synth ID. Synth ID is a way that Google started to develop to watermark their output, right? Text that it produces. And there's a synth ID text besides the synth ID that they already do for images. So they started with the synth ID for images and video. And now there is a synth ID text. And what they want to do is that's starting to watermark the text that has been produced by an AI system and not kind of changed or supervised or, twisted by humans. And this comes from the studies that have been done that when you retrain corpuses of AI on their own output, they collapse. So it's called model collapse, because models will always tend to the most common denominator and agreeing with being in agreement with the consensus. And when you agree with the consensus, then you lose the edge cases and the differences that makes humans and different and creative. So as we produce more of this at scale content and AI content without supervision or without whatever, you are unlikely even to go into training. So you will not even go into memory because you'll be filtered out at start, because these systems will learn to filter you out. And if I was on this forefront labs that are responsible, I would be secretly working towards this, right? Because I do not want to my models and my training data to be contaminated by something that will make it collapse. And I would not tell anyone that I'm doing this. I would just do it, because this is a defensive mechanism.
Right.
So this is just a food for thought to put up there for everyone that's doing content at scale. I would not bank on the, thing that this is going to be working forever, and that you are betting on the right horses in there. So there you go. This is, and
well, it's interesting, right? Because I'm dating myself here, but you had like turnitin.com and, like when you would put your book report or whatever to turnitin.com to see if it was plagiarized from somewhere on the internet, right? And then you're seeing images now. It's getting tagged as this was created by AI, not manipulated by a human. So it's only a matter of time to get to the point where we're doing that with text.
Yeah.
And so I see the trend coming. We've done this in different ways in the past. And back to your point of trust, if these pages get flagged, if they're just truly ChatGPT created, like I could see where that then becomes a problem. And you've also mentioned, this is something I was super interested in because I'm not as familiar with it. When you're talking about bringing things to your engineering team, right? So you say, something needs to be done that you want, you're Volvo, but you want to rank for reliability, right? You want to be like Toyota. There's that gap that you're not seen as like the reliable go-to, and you want to build for that. If I'm on the marketing team and I'm an SEO person, what would I go and ask my engineering team to do to help me do that? Like what would that conversation be like?
Well, first you need to have a concrete plan for whatever you want to do. Like you have to think like options of things that you can do in order to promote that association with your brand. So I would say, one, you can invest in training, making sure that whatever is presented to these systems presents you in what you want to be recognized for. And it's done in an efficient way and in a way that kind of contributes to their learning. Another thing that you want to be present, among diverse opinions and not be only you saying things about you. You want people to say things about you. So this, I would say that PR and, is about to become as much as important as being technically sound, because distribution matters. If you like, these systems for validation on YouTube videos, they look for validation on third-party websites, they look for validation on other sources, and they will continue to do so because they want to make sure that they have an unbiased version of you. So I would say you need to have a full, branding plan and then from there, you need to make sure that whatever needs to be executed by the content team, the PR team, the design team, is done in a way that is seen by these systems, and they're not blind to it. So whatever you create needs to be retrievable or understood. How do you make a look and feel of your brand or a tone of voice from your brand be perceived by these systems? You have to describe it. You have to give them some way that they can understand this. And this needs to be done by whomever is versed in understanding how bots consume content. So there you go. If you throw out the SEO people, now you're out of options for doing this. So I would say there is not like a checklist that you kind of can take because unfortunately for each brand there will be a different approach. And I said, we are going towards a more complex, more work to be done era, not less. The less is gone. The way that we used to put websites in directories and do link building, that's done. We are not there anymore. We are moving past that towards being more genuine, and these systems will only become smarter. So, I mean, there's no other way to put it. I'm sorry, there's no other way to put it.
And I think because what you're saying, it's not. I mean, bad content will hurt you, but more content, if it's the right content, genuine content, here's the reality of our product or what we're offering, or why other products might be better. That's what's going to help with these memory banks now.
And if I had to think of two things to keep in mind is do genuine content, do content that actually drives value, and make sure that it is efficient for them. Remember that these systems have memory and they have to do retrievability when they're not sure. So you need to be present in their memory and you need to be retrieval when it's awarded. And these are the two things that I need to have, in the back of my mind whenever I'm, dealing it with how you want to be seen in search.
Yep. Yeah, and so we got this question. I think it was actually from Doran Chapeau. I don't know why your name's not coming up, but he says, with the firehouse of content and search everywhere, what are your thoughts about personalization and how it affects product and brand lift? I definitely have my own opinions on this, but I'll let you go ahead and get started.
So personalization is tricky on these things, right? Because you'd think that the purpose of these things is to be your personal assistant at some point and know everything about you. And this means that they have some kind of knowledge and propensity to be biased with you towards what you like and what you dislike, right? So they will unlikely show you something that you dislike, and will more often than not will show you something that you like. And this is how these systems know you and work with you and get to know you. And I think the value of these things is that they at some time they will take care of things for you, so they have to know you really well. So I think at some point there will be things that are unavoidable in terms of this kind of there are brands that are for you and brands that are not for you. I think we all agree with that, right? That are just things that I like from certain brands, things that I do not like for certain brands. And no matter what a brand does, they will never, be on my smiley side, because either I had a bad experience with them or I just don't like them, the way that their values represent or whatever, So in search, we had somehow this a little bit where Google would use like your past history kind of, to kind of present you what and infer what you would want next. But I think as we evolve and these systems know more about you, they'll just like be more on your side in kind of showing you what you like, unless you explicitly ask them to show you things that are out of your bubble. And I don't know, we might get to a way that, or to a time where models are very smart and they will understand that they should not be biased and they should show you new things. or not. And there will be like self-implosion from there. But I think it always like, there will always be new people coming along and starting from scratch. So you want to be appealing for people who have no history, no context. There will always be a stale context to serve to. So I think this is where you should start. And I think towards the more personalized you are towards something, it's not something that you can influence. For example, if I'm an Apple fan, I'm unlikely to go to Samsung or to an Android thing for whatever, because I'm just an Apple fan.
Yeah.
And that's how it is. There's nothing Samsung can do to win me over unless they would become Apple, right?
Right.
So what they can do is be appealing to whomever doesn't have a preference yet and shape their preferences. So in this case, I would say there's not much you can do towards personalization. Well, to a certain degree, where people are not convinced yet, and they might be leaning to, be conceding to. There are more people that might be conceding to change a brand burden, so depending on certain conditions, but there might be people that are more sold to a brand and they are not willing to change it for anything.
Yeah.
So I think there's always this nuance that you need to account for, that yes, there is a huge level of personalization. Yes, there's a huge level even of context, like in a certain conversation. A model leans within the context of that conversation to give you a recommendation, and then when you start a fresh conversation, it kind of loses a little bit of the memory from that other context. But that is, we know that, for example, Claude has more of a generic memory, and about you, like Gemini, also like it starts to feed this more holistic memory of you.
Yeah.
So it kind of, I would say that it's an avoidable personalization, and it's kind of just, it will be there, but there will be new people coming along. There are babies being born, there are people dying, and it's not that people are going to be boxed in a forever personalization. There is no possibility of being discovered ever, because there will be people coming online every single day, new people that do not have an idea of what Apple is or what Samsung is or whatever Toyota is or what Volvo is. And you have the opportunity to shape your brand on their preferences. So, and this is where I think it mostly matters, to kind of measure on the non-personalized edge and measure on whatever you can to make sure that at the starting point, your odds are good. And then, you can reinforce your point for people that are already more vested into your brand, rather than giving them negative scenarios or presenting them with bad content that will make them change their minds. But do not fret that much about it, because it's just unavoidable the way we are going, I would say.
I think personalization, and exactly to your point, is such an interesting thing for me, because you think about historically, how did we personalize? It was like a click, a transaction. It was very like, you did an action, we will personalize for that, or we know your first name and we know your birth date. And it was so, I don't know, it felt transactional. And now, like you're saying, with all this additional context, the way that we're searching is longer, we're giving AI more context into what we need or why we're searching for something. And all of that information makes personalization so interesting, because like you said, if I can take that context and know that you are an Apple guy, I don't want to be Samsung wasting money showing you ads on Meta and Google or whatever, and waste a bunch of money trying to show you an ad, trying to convert you when that will never happen. And so I do think systems are getting smarter, not just what they're showing you. And Google talked about that personalized UI on like the Google homepage, right, which is an interesting concept. But if it has all the context, if it's not only learning about brands, but it's learning about you, like you said, as a personal assistant, I could see where personalization down the road could get really exciting. It's like, I don't know, the TikTok For You page, like we don't quite know how it works. But it shows You know what I mean? It's very interesting.
I think the main takeaway from personalization is that personalization is not on or off. It's not
Yeah.
binary.
Yes.
Personalization has levels of depth, right? You are propense to a brand, you like a brand, you become a fan of a brand, you become an advocate for a brand. If you are down the funnel of being an advocate and your whole ecosystem at your home is made of a brand, you are most unlikely to switch to another brand. But if you are at the level that you are just experimenting with a brand, then you might be willing to, if I just had bought my first iPhone, it doesn't qualify that I'm an Apple guy, probably, because I might not have a whole ecosystem at home that is all Apple. But if I've been for 20 years with Apple, and if my ecosystem at home is all Apple, then my AI is unlikely to go and suggest me something that is not compatible to whatever I have. So it's just like it has levels. It's not like a on or off, right?
Yeah.
It's like, and you can be, effective at swaying someone that is at a more entry level and not, and it has the correct traits that you are searching for on a brand, but you are unlikely to sway someone that is already sold and has become an advocate for a brand, unless the brand that they like messes up awfully, like a lot.
In which case,
Yeah,
AI
there are cases, like we all
on.
know about like car brands in the past, like Volkswagen, the
Yeah.
debacle that they had with the Dieselgate and stuff like that, that put a lot of people off. Like, so, like
Exactly.
there are cases, but
It has nothing
yeah.
to do with AI, just AI
Yes, exactly.
say, happen, go do it, go
Yes.
make this strategy.
Yeah.
I know we are already over time, but I do have one more question, and that's looking forward. Looking at the next 3 to 5 years, which feels really impossible to predict at this point, but executives are placing bets on like what are they doing and how are they managing the legacy debt that they already have while also trying to build for how search is changing. So what technologies or what should these companies be thinking about for the future, and either to divest in, what to maybe not look at anymore, or what to invest in, what they really need to think about going forward?
I think we don't need to do we need to do more. In a world of robots, the human trait is going to be the prize, right?
Yep.
So if you excel at being really genuine for your audience and of your users in a way that machines can understand it and present it to there as something that you'd prefer, I think this is where you should be investing, right? Like, you should not be investing in not having a website because SEO doesn't matter anymore, or throwing out the baby with the bathwater because now all you need is one cloud and you can replace all your SEO and content task force with 10 ChatGPTs. I think this is a wrong approach. I think we should be making conscient bets on where AI can augment your powers and not replace them. And so I think, like, we should be, like, again, using AI to help us do what we didn't have the breath to do before. What is awarded right now and what I give credit to is this new approach to try to understand how AIs associate you with something, and either you are in their memory, in the training data, in what form you are there, and if they want to retrieve you, that you are there to be retrieved and you are relevant and you have the right architecture that is easy to navigate. AIs can use you, and even if you choose to present some content to AIs and another content to humans, or you are selective in the terms of content that you want to show these systems, people have been even discussing about rendering different content on the pages for for these systems. That might be you show a section when it's a human, you don't show the section when it's an AI, or vice versa. I don't know. We are all we're all experimenting. I think this is something that people with experience in SEO are very valuable for, and should be your main points of contact and people that you rely on to make these decisions. Do not go all overboard in trying to automate everything, because at some point, and it happens, with automation is not easy, it's not hard, because it's hard to start with. No, the automation is actually very easy to implement. What is hard to do is control the output, because the output needs to be qualitative. And usually what happens is that output tends to be quantitative, and the qualitative is overlooked or gets blindsided, right? And then this ends up exposing you in a way that you didn't intend to the world, in ways that you are perceived in a negative light, because it shows that you didn't put effort, it shows that you don't care, it shows that you just want, some kind of gimmick, and this ends up not reflecting, well towards your audience, I would say. So I would say implement automation in an intelligent way, where you use it to augment, but always have some kind of quality checks in place in the output, in whatever you produce, in whatever you ship. So yeah, this is what I have to say in what you should invest going forward.
And clearly you've got some fans out there, because unsolicited from me, it seems like there are a lot of folks that agree with you. And I think that that's true. At the end of the day, we are humans. We're still doing the buying, regardless of what we think agents can or can't do.
We will.
Right? So.
I don't think, I think I will not want any robot making financial decisions for me,
Correct.
Health decisions for me.
Yes.
Whatever kind of involves my money and my life, even my vacations.
Yes.
I do not want a robot to plan my vacations and where I'm going to eat, where I'm going to stay. I want to see it. I want to have a sense of quality of what I'm going to get, and bots cannot judge quality. Sometimes the human eye is, and I'm very much like that. I have an Alexa at home. It nags me of things that I have in Amazon cart, and I don't do the checkout. And I never do. I never used it to do any, because I want to check whatever I'm buying. And sometimes I just put something on automatically on the cart because I want to look at it later. And I am the one pressing the checkout button, not the bot. So I know at some, it will be tricky. It will be, but yeah. I mean, but things will change, that's for sure. The genie is not going to go back in the bottle.
Yes, so. I think, and this is like probably a whole nother conversation, but what you're saying, there's this idea of like agentic discovery, which I think is obviously very real. If I want someone to give me a list of top 5-10 places potentially to stay or potentially to eat based on this criteria, give me a list and then I'll do my own research, versus this, I don't know, FOMO over agentic commerce, which is more of like the actual payment and like making purchases and making actual decisions. And that's such a different conversation, but everyone's so focused on agentic commerce that they're not getting agentic discovery and search right. And that's a whole
everyone is following the FOMO, right? Everyone has the fear of missing out. All these new novelties, everyone wants to be at the forefront of whatever these things are. So there's a lot of fear of missing out. Marketing departments not kind of lost of what they should be doing. Lots of people doing guesswork or asking ChatGPT what they should be doing. So there's going to be a lot of mistakes. And
and like we saw humans over algorithms. If you do what's good for your humans, truly what's good for your customers, I think you'll be successful. So I like it. Well, man, we covered a lot today. Such an awesome conversation. Any other parting words, any other advice you give to retailers right now?
Well, I think it's, I said a lot of what I should say. I mean, there are going to be a lot of edge cases and where things should be done, and
Yeah.
but that I think that's better be left to every single case, because not everyone. And what I think is that everyone should be searching for, their true purpose of having a business, of how they can differentiate themselves, on how they can shine out of the competition because they are associated with something that their competitors aren't.
Yeah.
And this is what you should be searching for, in my opinion.
I like it. Well, like we mentioned, if you don't follow his newsletter, The Inference, definitely do. It's one of my personal favorites to read, and follow him on LinkedIn, as we've seen from some of the other people who joined today. Some really great content, and thank you so much for your time. And yeah, it'll be interesting to see where this goes. I'm excited.
Right. Well, thanks for having me, Michelle, and mind the sarcasm.
I love it. I'm here for it. Thanks so much, and thanks everyone for joining. We'll see you soon. All right. I think